Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Today I thought I would do some kind of hollow form sorts of pieces and combine them into a bracelet that should be sort of modern looking. It looks a little bit, what I drew up looks a little Bauhaus to me sort of, so we'll see. But I think it'll be a fun project. I'm going to use brass, copper, and silver for this one. And it should make for a nice chain bracelet. So we'll see how it turns out. Before we do that, though, I wanted to thank some people. My primary supporters are my patrons, and I have a new one. It's Michelle W. Thank you for signing up. I really appreciate your support. I think that you'll find that that's a really nice group of people over there that you can tap into for knowledge and resources and things. So make sure to do that. And thank you to all of my patrons for all of their support over the past few years. The other group is my YouTube subscribers, who I also couldn't do this without. And we just passed 23,400, which is amazing. Thank you for that. I love it when people tell me that I've helped them in some way. So those of you who've done that, I really do appreciate that. It feels good knowing that I'm helping some people somewhere out there. So thanks for that. Thank you also for the nice financial support. The Buy Me a Coffee is a super thanks. People who buy my merch on my merch store, people who've bought my ebooks, or people who've signed up for my Patreon. So all of that really helps and keeps my channel sustainable. I appreciate that more than you know, and I wanted you to hear that. So thanks for your support, and let's get started on this project. So this is one of my design idea sketchbooks, and you can get these on my merch store. There's a number of different varieties. This one has a gauge to inches to millimeters conversion table on the back, which I find pretty useful. The big feature I like about these is the dot matrix in the background, because it acts like graph paper without being quite as obtrusive. And it gives me, it helps me to draw things a little bit better, because drawing is not my strongest suit. So, what I really love about them, though, is ever since I started the channel, I started keeping track of what I made, and now I have a record of what I've done, and I can go back and see my drawing and see how I did things if I want to recreate something similar. And that's really useful for me. So, I think it's worth looking into and maybe getting one. But let's talk about today's project now. So this is what I had in mind, and so I'm going to do kind of hollow form things. So these are going to be about yay deep and made out of silver, and I'm going to use 22 gauge sheet for these outer parts. I'm going to use 18 gauge round wire for the little links, and I'm going to have to make a bunch of little links for these. And then on top I'm going to use either 18 gauge silver sheet to create these patterns, or 18 gauge brass sheet, or 18 gauge copper sheet. So I've started with silver here, brass, copper, silver, copper, like that. And I made the end one here just to get an idea what it's going to look like. And I've kind of tried to make some different, each one's a little bit different from the other one. And that should give us some variety and make it look sort of cool, hopefully. Not always right when I think something's going to look cool, but usually it comes out cool when I think it's going to be. There are exceptions. So let's get started on this. Like I said, the materials are 18 gauge sheet and 18 gauge wire for the tops, and those are 1 millimeter roughly. 22 gauge sheet for the sides is 0.66 millimeters. And I might just do an S clasp on this one, because it's quite a bit of work here. Sometimes I do box clasps and things like that for this. If you want to see how to make some box clasps, I have a video about that, because I may not have time to do that today. So, all right, well, let's get started. I think let's make this one here. What I did to find the length of the piece of silver that I need for the outer part is I took the diameter of the circle that I drew. This one was 11 millimeters. And so if you multiply that times pi, you get 34.54 millimeters. So 34.5 millimeters roughly, and let's see if I got enough. This is a piece that I cut this one off of. Let's see if we have enough here to do that. Did I say 34.5? 34.5 roughly? Okay. So let's go 10, 20, 30, 4 and a half. So right about there. Cut that off. I might cut a second one, since I'm going to have to make one over here the same size. This actually started out as 18 gauge sheet, and I rolled it through my rolling mill to thin it out because I'm a little bit low on 22. And so I may have to go roll out some more as we go along if I need more. I suspect I will. Alright. So let's file the ends of both of these. If you haven't been to my channel before, I use primarily hard silver sheet solder. I do use a little paste solder now and again anymore. I use a liquid flux that I dribble on with a dropper bottle. My torch is a Silversmith model. It's their acetylene air torch. It pulls in atmospheric air to mix with the gas in the tip through these little holes. And so it doesn't have an extra tank pumping pure oxygen. It's not as hot as an oxyacetylene, but it's quite a bit hotter than a propane or a butane torch. So it's a really good torch for silversmithing. I like them a lot. I know a lot of people start with the little portable butane torches, and those are great for small things. But you get to a point where when you're doing bigger stuff that those are relatively hard to use because they just don't produce enough heat to get a big piece of metal up to the temperature you need it to be. Interestingly, you can actually, if you've ever seen those little cigar lighters that have like a jet engine looking flame on them, you can solder jump rings and stuff with those. We tested that theory one time. But because of the size of the flame, you'd never be able to solder much bigger than that. It just doesn't produce enough heat to heat up an entire big piece. So, okay, so I'm going to make this into sort of a circly shape and then bring the ends together. I probably will do a few of these on camera and then do the rest off camera because I'm going to be kind of doing something sort of repetitive. And then I'll go back on camera to hook them all together and add a clasp. So I'm pushing these past each other so they're kind of springing together. Okay, let's put a little piece up there. Use my round or my bail making pliers to kind of push out some of these irregularities. You could put this on a, you might even be able to get this on a ring mander, but it's going to be close on this one probably. So I'm going to use this little jump ring or bezel mandrel. These ended up, I cut them out of 18 gauge at 4 millimeters wide. And then after I rolled them through the rolling mill, they were about 5 millimeters wide, but significantly longer. Okay, so, and this one, we're doing silver on these ones. So let me find some 18 gauge silver. That's nice if you can use up those cutoff pieces that you have. I think this might be big enough. That's definitely big enough to get a half off of here like this. Well, first off, let's file this area. Make sure it's straight and clean. Since it's going to be on the edge of this, I want to make sure it doesn't tip off. So I have this piece of scrap over here that I was pounding on the other day. And we'll just do this, and then I'm going to solder it on the outside edge there with some of this. Now you can just set it on the outside after you flux it if you want to and heat the whole thing. There's quite a bit of sheet in the bottom here compared to this little piece, and so much of the heat's going to go in that base piece because it's going to be harder to get that up to the soldering temperature, which in the case of hard silver sheet solder is about 1450 degrees. So we want them both to reach that temperature pretty close to the same time. So feeling fluxed. If you're struggling with that, you could cut off some of this excess because that's going to act as an additional mass in that piece to make it harder to get it up to the temperature. But if you're interested in seeing how to pick solder like I'm doing here, I have a good video there that will show you how to do it. It's one of those techniques that I learned a long time ago that has made it possible for me to do things that I wouldn't have been able to do without it, probably. Really, I just want to make sure I get a seam all the way edge to edge there. I thought about doing like triangles and octagons and things like that. That might be kind of a fun way to try at some point. Okay, I'm just going to cut off this excess. You can saw this out if you're one of those people. And I don't say that in a bad way. Just some people like to saw more than I do. If you're one of those sorts. I've actually come to grips with my dislike of sawing and started to enjoy it. Okay, so we've got this one. And you can see how I put the 18 gauge kind of maybe a little bit more than half a loop. Half a league. All right, so let's make a couple more of those. I have a spring that I made out of 18 gauge that I was going to cut them off of, and then of course this. So let's cut off a couple of, actually let's cut off 4. I'm going to go about halfway. One thing I did in order to make these stick out a little further and be a little bit narrower is I turned them more into ovals a little bit, or half ovals. Hold it loosely in my flat nose like this. Just slightly bend them in like that. Start with those ones. Save the ones for the next one. Okay, and I'm going to be doing this one straight off of that direction, so we'll just have to line up 2 of those. Now I think we need to do it just the opposite on the other side. That looks like a, you know what pareidolia is? It's where you have a tendency to see faces and things. That looks like a happy smiling frog or something. Okay, here's a good question that I don't know the answer to that I was thinking about the other day that maybe some of you can help me with. For years and years and years I never used anything but hard silver sheet solder. And I was under the impression that lower temperature solders were weaker in that they would not be as strong of a solder joint as the hard silver sheet solder physically. And I'm wondering if that was a misconception on my part, because I have not noticed a difference really. But I would like to know some experts' thoughts about that. So if you happen to know that whether it's physically less strong or not, I'm curious. Leave me a comment so I can hear what you have to say. I'd love it if a metallurgist would answer that for me. I know that because it's got a lower content of silver in it that it's not going to polish quite as well. It'll have a slightly different color than sterling. But my curiosity is it less strong physically? I keep missing that one. There we go. Alright, so now we got this one. See, I put these a little bit wider on this one. I may have overdone it. We'll see though. But let's do the next one with a copper. I have on this one I'm going to put not a whole half circle off to this side and then parallel on this side a smaller one, just for something different. But let's make the silver strip on this one. That one's going to be 13 millimeters, and so the length of the strip is about 40.82 millimeters. We'll just call it 41. Kind of surprised I chose this project today since we just bought a bunch of stones at the gem show. I have all sorts of new pretty stones that I want to make stuff out of. But this kind of felt like the right thing to do today. So I did a bad soldering job here. That's fine if you could see it on the camera. What happened was, in order to get a good solder joint between two sides of a piece, you need to get both sides up to that 1450 degrees, and I clearly got this side to hit that temperature point before this side did, so it initially jumped over there, but pretty rapidly I brought this side up to temperature, and it was puddled enough to where it flowed across and we got a seam. So that creates what's called a cold solder joint. If you've ever had solder joints that break really easily, that's usually what happens. It looks like it sticks to both, but it only sticks to one because one side didn't quite reach temperature, so it just kind of flows over the surface, and it looks good but isn't good. Oh no, I was doing this one here. Save that one for over here. So I need a little skinny one and a little bit bigger one. I like this to be pretty parallel. Sometimes when you have an asymmetric pattern like this, it kind of throws your eye off when you're trying to do things symmetrically. We'll try that and see how that works. I guess in the big scheme of things, if it's a tiny bit crooked, it's probably not the end of the world. Need one with brass now, and this one needs a 51.81 piece. Oops. Okay, I need to find the center of this, and since we're doing this quarter out thing, I'd like to mark out a quarter. So let me find my little fine marker. Close enough. Alright, we'll see how my sawing skills are tonight. Alright, looks like a little Pac-Man. Alright, so let's go clean that up with the file and then we'll solder it up. I think we'll need that for this one. Well, I think you should do a variation of this one where all of the links look like frog faces and different facial expressions. That'd be awesome. If you ever do that, show me. Oh, and if you're enjoying this, maybe consider giving it a like. That's how YouTube finds me and promotes me, so the more likes I get, the more I get promoted. So If you're enjoying it, that would help me out a great deal. So thanks in advance. Come here. These copper tongs are almost done. That looks about right to me. Okay, so we're almost halfway there. This one, this one, this one. There we go, this one. Cool. All right, well, I'll be back in a few. Okay, I've been busy off camera, finishing these up. Oops. Yeah, that's better. I went ahead and put a little simple clasp on here, just kind of a little shepherd's hook clasp. I have a video about making those from a long time ago. It may be a little crude, but the information's still pretty good. Let's see what we got here, here, there, and there. Okay, so now we got to hook these together. So I cut some 18 gauge round, and I thought for these ones I need a little bit more room. Let's do it around this one instead of this one to make them a little bit bigger. And I'm going to use medium solder, I think, for these, so medium paste solder, just to make it easier. As long as you isolate the heat on just the rings when you're soldering them, you can get by with using hard solder. But as tired as I am now, I don't want to mess it up. Alright, so let's hook some of these together. It's working pretty well. I could probably try and do these all in one go, but I'm not going to do that. I think I'm doing one at a time. So I got to make sure the solder joint's upright. And a little bit right here. A little bit right here. Something else I should mention is that Polishing chains on a polishing wheel can be very sketchy, and until you've had some experience doing it, I wouldn't. So you might want to use a rotary tool, at least for now, until you've had a little more experience. If you're new to this. The problem being chains are loose and floppy. If you're not careful, you can get hung up on the wheel and pull part of you into the polisher, which is not ideal. So I would suggest, if you're new to this, to either have somebody who's been doing this for a long time help you polish it, or like I said, use a rotary tool plus maybe a tumbler. Tumblers don't get rid of scratches, but they do give you kind of a burnished look. Almost there. So one of the things I forgot to mention is that every month I give my patrons a different prompt to give them get them thinking out of the box for some different kinds of jewelry piece ideas. And this month's theme was geometry or geometric shapes, which is a pretty broad term since I guess everything's geometric in a sense. But I think in terms of like geometry class and stuff like that. So this will be my first entry into that prompt that I gave them. So they always produce some really interesting stuff, and I like to see what they come up with. Okay, I think we got them all, so I'm going to put this in the pickle, and then we'll get it polished up, and I'll show you the final result. So I got everything polished up. It's all good to go, I think. I don't know if you can see that in this light, but it's now that it's all cleaned up, you can see the various colors of the metals. I think that turned out kind of cool. I like that one. I would revisit this one again and maybe play with some of the shapes and things. Well, tell me what you think, what you would have done different, if you like it, if you don't like it. I'd love to hear your input. So, all right, I'll get some better pictures and put them at the end. All right, well, that was the Bauhausy sort of chain bracelet. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you go. I would love it also if you would go over to my main YouTube channel page and check out some of my other videos. I have over 530 now. So I do 3 per week, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday, and one on Saturday. And so I'm constantly producing new content. So I think it's worthwhile checking that out. There's tons of content there, and there's almost certainly something you'll find that's useful. So check it out, subscribe to my channel. And I'd love it if you'd also check out the video description down below. There's some important links. There's a link to my Patreon if you want to find out more about that. Really cool community over there. There's multiple tiers of membership. The first tier is $5 a month, and with that one you get rid of all of the YouTube advertisements, so that's kind of nice. But the tiers above that feature some other perks like Patreon exclusive tutorials and live streams and things like that. So check it out. It's a nice community over there with a lot of cool people. There's also a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks I showed you at the beginning, or some other merch. There's a number of cool things over there that are very useful. I find those books invaluable, and I suggest you get a couple. The other thing is there's a link to my ebooks. If you want to get a guide to either 2024's or 2023's videos, I have an ebook for each one that features a page that talks about each video, has a link to the video, has a picture of the sketch that I made, has a picture of the final outcome, a list of materials, a difficulty rating, and a bunch of notes I made about the project itself that might not have been mentioned in the video. So it's a great way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips, and a super nice way to support my channel. So get yourself one of those too. Alright, well thanks for watching today. Take care. Happy silversmithing.